Now I can tell you the whole book of Judges in 2 minutes. Or less. I'll just draw a star up here as poorly as I can, because the whole book of Judges is just one thing right after another. And this is it. You got a judge. The judge died. Israel sins. God punishes. Israel repents. God gives them a judge. Then the judge dies. Then God punishes. Then Israel repents. Then God gives them a judge. And then God repents. And then they get another judge. And the judge dies. And then Israel sins. And then God punishes. And Israel repents. And God brings up a judge. Now, for Ruth. That's the whole thing. That's the whole book of Judges. That's the whole time of Judges. That's the way God was king. When Israel got in trouble, he punished them, and when they repented, he got them out of it. There's one story like that after the other. Judges chapter 1 starts us on this cycle. Now, after the death of Joshua, look at chapter 2, verse 6. Judges chapter 1 says, after the death of Joshua. Judges chapter 2, verse 6 says, when Joshua let the people go. So these things are not in order. If you add up individually the time of the judges and the time of the oppressors, you got too much time. We don't have enough time in Israel, in the Bible, to fit them all in there, one right after the other, very neatly. There had to be judges in different parts of the country living at the same time. This time in Israel was just a wasteland. The Levites weren't doing their jobs. Even the good guys did some unlawful things. They didn't know any better. Gideon made a golden ephod that Israel worshipped. He didn't know any better. The Levites hadn't done their job. They hadn't taught God's people the law. They didn't know how to honor God. They didn't know that God would be displeased with that. Same thing now. Every man is just like every man, whatever they think is the best thing to do. In other words, everybody doing the wrong thing. First of all, Israel asked, who's going to go attack the Canaanites first? That's in chapter 1, verse 1. The lot came for Judah. Elijah? Show us on our map of Canaan, if you will, where Judah's tribe inheritance was. Judah's this big territory in the south. It's very important to know that, because your Old Testament history, before it's over, will have a kingdom of Judah instead of a tribe of Judah down there. It'll be its own nation. So Judah asked Simeon, how about going up with me whenever it's my turn to fight, and whenever it's your turn to fight, I'll go up with you. Simeon says, fine. So, Amanda, where's Simeon's territory? Well, Beersheba was a city of Simeon. Simeon's territory was inside the territory of Judah. So wherever Judah was, Simeon had cities scattered around. So Judah and Simeon went up with each other's lots to fight the Canaanites. During this fight, they met a man in the town of Bezek, in verse 5, called Lord of Bezek, Adonai Bezek. And they took him, after they caught him, they took him, in verse 6, and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. And Adonai Bezek sued them for violating his civil rights. I like this attitude that this man has. He's not a victim. He doesn't see himself as a victim. He doesn't pout, mope, complain, grumble. He said, 70 other kings grabbed their food from up under my table. And I cut off their thumbs and their big toes, and now God has caused me to reap what I sowed. He wasn't a victim. What a refreshing attitude. Amen. He knew he got what he deserved. He didn't grumble about being punished when he had done what he had done. That's a good attitude. Amen. That's the way to get mercy from God. Now, within the border of what tribe, Jimmy, was the city of Jerusalem? I don't think so.
It's right on the line of Benjamin.
You hedging now?
It's right on the line. I always thought it was in Judah, actually, but I know it's right on the line of Benjamin.
The city of Jerusalem is in Benjamin. That valley of Hinnom that we saw right outside the city, that's in Judah. The line was right at the bottom of the hill. So the city itself belonged to Benjamin. But look at this verse here. Verse 8. Now the children of Judah had fought against Jerusalem and had taken it, smitten with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. But Judah couldn't inhabit that city because God hadn't given it to Judah. They took the city for Benjamin. Benjamin never took it. Judah handed it to Benjamin on a silver platter. I guess they destroyed it because the Jebusites up in the city might have been throwing rocks down at the Judah farmers down in the valley. Might have been something like that. That's why Israel took the Golan Heights. Syrians up in the Golan Heights bombing the Israeli farmers down around the Sea of Galilee. So Israel took the Golan Heights. They still have it because they got tired of being bombed. Well, Judah took Jerusalem, which is right here. He took the city from the Canaanites. It was there for Benjamin's taking. But look at verse 21. The children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day. And what kind of effect did dwelling with the Canaanites have on the tribe of Benjamin?
Almost got them wiped out.
They came within 600 men of being wiped out because they became so much like the Canaanites. Even though Judah had taken the city and left it for them to have. Well, next in verse 10, Judah, after they conquered some of their other territory, went against the Canaanites that dwelt in Hebron. Now, this is for Caleb, because Moses had told Joshua and Eleazar, when you get to the land and divide it, give Caleb that part of ground that he himself spied out when I sent the 12 spies up from Kadesh Barnea. Caleb surveyed this land around Hebron. Now Judah's going to take it for him, help him. Judah went against the Canaanites that dwelt in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron before was Kirjath Arba. Kirjath means city. Arba is the name of a man, the city of Arba. He was a giant. He was one of those sons of Anak, I guess. Well, they list his sons here. 3 of them anyway. Kirjath Arba is the name of a man, the city of Arba. They slew Sheshai and Ahiman and Talmai. They are the 3 sons of Anak. Sons of Anak are the sons of the giant. Anak was a giant. And there he went out against the inhabitants of Debir, and the name of Debir before was city of Sephir. And Caleb said it, he that smites the city of Sephir and taketh it, I'll give him Achsah, my wife, my daughter to wife. And his nephew took it, and so his nephew married his daughter. First cousins married there. Verse 16, very interesting little sidelight here. You get the feeling when you're reading these early chapters of Judges that you're just getting a bunch of extra pieces, like historians took notes and got them all together and just kind of crammed them all in here. Now here's a note about Moses' kinfolk, Midianites. The children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees, that's Jericho, with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in the south of Arad. That's down here. So here's where Israel was, this area right here. And when they scattered, Moses' kinfolk went down this way and lived within the territory of Judah, down here in the south. Some of them switched places later, but that's where they went first. And they went and dwelt among the people. Who are the people, Randall? Yeah, the people are the Israelites. So they lived within the Israelite territory. Verse 20, Judah gave Hebron unto Caleb as Moses said, and he expelled the 3 sons of Anak. Let me see. The rest of this chapter I think we've already done, because we sketched in where the Canaanites held territory within the Promised Land. Chapter 2 now. An angel of the Lord, or messenger of the Lord, it could have been an earthly messenger. It's just translated angel here. A human being can be an angel of the Lord, a messenger of the Lord. But it says angel here, came up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt. I have brought you into the land which I promised unto your fathers, and I said, I will never break my covenant with you. And your part will be that you make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Throw down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall remain in your territory as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Lord spoke these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there unto Jehovah, the right God. And Joshua let the people go. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, the ones who had seen the great works of the Lord that he did for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. They buried him within the tribe of what? Ephraim. Why did they bury Joshua within the tribe of Ephraim, Sammy? Of all people, why Joshua within the tribe of Ephraim? You don't know? Sheila, why would they pick Joshua to bury within the tribe of Ephraim? He was from Ephraim. It would have been kind of weird to bury him anywhere else. Ephraim was the head of all the tribes. Joshua was from Ephraim. The headquarters of Israel was in Ephraim. Where was that headquarters, Glenn? No, Moses killed him.
Shechem, wasn't it?
I don't think so. Shiloh. The first capital of Israel was in Ephraim, Shiloh. The first head of all the people after Moses died was from Ephraim, Joshua. So Ephraim's pretty established as the head of all the tribes now. Now, what about when all those elders died? Verse 10. All that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. A generation now is in control that never saw manna, that didn't come through the Red Sea or the Jordan River, that didn't help conquer the land with Joshua when he commanded the sun to stand still and the moon to stand still. Everything had just been handed to them. This generation completely lost touch with God. Levites didn't even realize how valuable they were in Israel. The Israelites didn't realize how valuable they were to God. They looked around at the Canaanites that God had left among them and envied them and began to intermarry with them. I mean, they were pretty. Some of them. Good builders. Fine altars. You should have seen that one at Bethel. Whew. They began to envy others instead of realizing their own value to the whole world. Israel was valuable to the whole world. Well, that generation died and a new generation came up. It's just like this judge dying right here. You already know what the next verse is going to say. The children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Baalim. I am on the end of that word Baal is plural. It's the Hebrew plural, masculine plural. We would have written it today, Baals. They served various Baals. There was Baal of this mountain, Baal of that river, Baal of the thunder, all kinds of Baals. They served them all. And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger, provoked him to jealousy. And they forsook the Lord and served Baal. There was one chief Baal, that brought the storms. And Ashtaroth. That's O-T-H is a feminine plural. Plural of Ashtars. Various Ashtar deities. Fertility goddesses. Well, God's response, the next place on the chart, God punishes. Why does He punish Israel? Because He loved them. He couldn't stand to see them ruining life. They hated themselves for their own sin, so He wanted to correct them so they'd stop sinning and they could love themselves again and be of value to the earth. So God punished them. They got miserable, started crying out to God. In verse 16, it says the Lord raised up judges. But verse 19, it's very unusual. Later in the Old Testament, you'll notice this. God says over and over again through the prophets, you're doing as evil as your fathers did. You're doing as evil as your fathers did. This is the only place in the Bible that I can see, that I remember God chastens a generation because they did not keep the commandments of God as their fathers did. It's the only generation that I can remember Him chastening with the words that they weren't faithful because their fathers were faithful. Look at the end of verse 17. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in obeying the commandments of the Lord. These people had a generation ahead of them that were faithful, did obey God. So judgment came when they went wrong. The Lord raised up judges. The Lord was with the judge. Verse 19, came to pass when the judge died that they returned back to sin and corrupted themselves more than their fathers. Verse 20, God punished them. He was hot against Israel, and He said, because that this people hath transgressed my covenant which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them any of the nations which Joshua left when he died, that through them I may prove Israel whether they will keep the way of the Lord to walk therein as their fathers did keep it or not. Therefore the Lord left those nations without driving them out hastily, them into the hand of Joshua. And it tells about the Philistine lords there in verse 3 being left, and a few others. Verse 5. The children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And Israel took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to be to their sons, and served their gods. So there's Israel sinning. They did evil, they forgot Jehovah, served Baals and the groves. God punished them, turned them over into the hand of Shushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And they served Shushan-Rishathaim 8 years. And when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a judge. So they repent, God raised up a judge, Othniel, same one that helped Caleb take Kirjath-Sepher. The Spirit of the Lord was on him, and he delivered Israel out of the hand of who, Leah?
Shushan-Rishathaim.
Very good. King of Mesopotamia into his hand. The land had rest. As soon as he died in verse 11, what happens in verse 12? Israel sins. Well, what does God do? He turns them over to Moab. And the Moabites are together in verse 13 with the Amalekites and the Ammonites. Leanne, who's the father of Moab and Ammon? Lot, that's right. Who was the mother of Moab and Ammon?
Lot's daughters.
Lot's daughters. What were their names?
I don't remember. I do not remember.
We're never told.
Oh,
They never mentioned their names. All right, Barbara, who was the father of Amalek? Well, grandfather, or so, great-grandfather, whatever. What were the two characteristics of Amalek, Barbara?
They were cruel and cowardly.
They were both cruel and cowardly. 50-50, or 100-100. They were both full of cruelty and cowardice. Well, God raised up Ehud, and he assassinates Eglon, the king of Moab. A very, very fat king. Stuck an 18-inch blade into him and the haft went in after that, and he couldn't even pull it back out. That was a very big man. And he rescued Israel from Moabites and their association with the Ammonites and Amalek. Ehud dies, Shamgar's next. Chapter 4, when Ehud was dead, Israel sinned again. God punished them by turning them over to Jabin, the king of Canaan. His city was Hazor. Now, Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time. She dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah, in verse 5, between Ramah and Bethel. Within which territory or tribe was Bethel? Anybody remember? It's in Ephraim. Just barely. It's on the borderline between Benjamin and Ephraim, but it's a town in Ephraim. That's right, Ephraim. She sent and called a man named Barak, son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh Naphtali, or Kedesh Naphtali. Now, do you have those list of judges? How many of you added Barak as a judge? Anybody else add Barak? Amy, you did? Well, with Deborah, I'm talking about with Deborah. He wouldn't have been a judge on his own. So how many, don't be ashamed now, raise your hand, how many put Barak? Lou, you did? Rob?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's okay, just as long as he's there with Deborah. I was hoping you would.
I'll go to the pencil.
Yeah, wrote everything else in pen, wrote that in pencil. That's good enough. Rob, did you say anything about what tribe he was from?
I put Ephraim.
Barak?
No, I
That's
didn't,
Deborah.
I didn't specify him. No.
Amy, did you?
No, not when I first did it.
Okay, Lou, did you?
Levi.
She put Levi because Kedesh was a Levitical city. It's in Naphtali, but it's a Levitical city. So I would have put Levi too, even though you know they're all jumbled up. But he specifies Kedesh in Naphtali, and he's called by God to do this. So I would lean toward Levi being what tribe he was from. She tells him to go gather your forces at a mountain called Tabor, and there's a battle. Sisera is the captain of King Jabin's army, and God, of course, gives Barak the victory. Sisera runs. But there's an interesting element to this story. In verse 11, chapter 4. Heber, the Kenite, which was of the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses. Now, we just read in chapter 1, that Moses' father-in-law, the kinfolk, moved down here. Now they're up there. Who else is up there from Moses' family? Gershom's son, Jonathan, is the priest up there of all the idols. So some of these kinfolk, at least some of them, some of Moses' kinfolk from Midian, also hear the call. They got a rich relative up there, priest to the whole tribe of Dan. So now they got a group of people up there, Moses' kinfolk. And they are acting as spies for Jabin, the king of Canaan. It says in verse 12, they showed Sisera. They reported to him that Barak, the son of Abinoam, was gone up to Mount Tabor. As Moses' kinfolk again. One's a priest for a tribe, an idolatrous priest, false priest, teaching lies. These are spies for Israel's enemies. So after the battle, Sisera flees in verse 17. He came to that relative of Moses' tent, Jael's tent, the wife of Heber. For there was peace between Jabin and the house of Heber, the Kenite. And Jael, this woman, now what's the main characteristic of a Midianite? This woman knows which is the winning side now because the general of Jabin's army is running. He ran to the wrong place. He didn't go to an ignorant person's tent. He went to somebody's tent who knew what the score was and how to get in good favor with the winners. Jael went out to meet him and said, "Turn in, my lord." Very respectful. "Turn in to me. Don't be afraid." And when he turned into her into the tent, she covered him over with a mantle. He said, "Please, give me a little water." She said, "Oh, I can do better than that. Here's a bottle of milk." And boy, that was really good. And she covered him up again. And he said, "Look, stand in the door. There are people after me. If they ask if anybody's here, say no." She said, "Of course I will. You just stay still and rest. Stay very still and don't move your head." Lie down and rest. And he did. He lay down, fell asleep. And she went and got a tent peg, a spike that they drive into the ground and tie the tent off to keep it sturdy during windstorms. Keep it up. She must have been a pretty good woman, pretty strong. She had a hammer and she put it up against his head, and one lick. I mean, she couldn't have missed and survived. Drove it right into his head, drove it through. Now it says when she did that, nail into his temples in verse 21, and nailed it on into the ground. You know why she did that? She wasn't satisfied with just nailing a spike through his head. What was that?
He was probably kicking around there.
I'm going to show you that he was. I'm going to show you that he was. Look in next chapter, verse 25. This is some more information about that moment, those few seconds. 5:20. Let's start at verse 25. Well, look at verse 24 first of all. "Blessed above women shall Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, be. Blessed shall she be above women in the tent. He asked for water. She gave him milk. She brought forth butter in a lordly dish." We're not told that until now. She gave him food and drink. "She put her hand to the nail," and she was right-handed, "her right hand to the workman's hammer. And with the hammer she smote Sisera and cut off his head." She got a trophy after she finished the work. When she had pierced and stricken through his temples, that's both of them. Look at this. "At her feet he bowed." That meant he had to get up. When that spike first went into his brain, he jumped up. But it's too late. Death blow had already been delivered. At his feet he bowed. He fell. He lay down. At her feet he bowed. He fell. You think he did it twice? Struggling? Might have. Where he bowed, there he fell down dead, and she cut his head off. Whew. Well, that's the end of that battle scene right there. Chapter 5, Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, on that day sang a song, saying, "Praise ye the Lord for the avenging of Israel, when the people willingly offered themselves." Now, I sent out a thought for today a few days ago that said this. Didn't Paul write to the Corinthians and say that God was ready to avenge? He was ready to come avenge. As a matter of fact, as God's representative, all disobedience when their obedience was fulfilled. So when we willingly offer ourselves to do the will of God, God will avenge you. Praise ye the Lord for the avenging of Israel, when the people willingly offered themselves. They sang the victory song. And look at this in verse 15. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar, and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley. He didn't ride a chariot. And then they mock Reuben. For the divisions of Reuben, who didn't show up for the battle, by the way, there were great thoughts of heart. "Why did you abide among the sheepfolds to hear the blatings of the flocks?" For the divisions of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. While we were out there slaughtering the enemies of God, Reuben was back in the sheepfolds wondering if they should. Great searchings of heart. I wonder what the proper course would be. And there's the battle going on right up there. Well, I wonder if I'll get there in time. Well, I wonder who's going to take care of the flock. I wonder if they really need me. Man, when there's a spiritual battle going on, get up and get in it and get some victory.
That's right.
The judge died at the end of chapter 5. And of course, you know what chapter 6 is going to say. The children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years. Midian, they knew they had the cunning to stay in control. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel, and because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens which are in the mountains, caves, and strongholds. They couldn't even live in their cities and towns, wherever part of the territory this was. And so it was when Israel had sown, the Midianites and the Amalekites, they had teamed up. Now you got the cruelest people on earth teamed up with the craftiest people on earth. And they encamped around against Israel and destroyed the increase of the earth till you came to Gaza and left no sustenance for Israel, nothing for their sheep or ox or ass. They came up with their cattle. They looked like grasshoppers. There were so many of them. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. Going back around the circle. The children of Israel cried unto the Lord because of Midianites, and the Lord sent a prophet to the children of Israel, which said to them, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt, brought you forth out of the house of bondage. I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, out of the hand of all that oppressed you, and I drove them out from before you and gave you their land. I said unto you, I am the Lord your God, me, I am. Fear not those gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell, but you have not obeyed my voice. And that's all God said. And then he raised up a judge. He was trying to make Israel love him. Now this judge, what tribe do you have Gideon from? Manasseh? That's right. He was threshing a little bit of wheat, but he was being very secretive about it. He was afraid of the Midianites and the Amalekites. He was hiding behind the barn, trying to beat out a little wheat to make some bread with. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in verse 12 and spoke to him and said, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. Huh? Well, you know the wonderful thing about that is that when God calls you a man of valor, that's what you are.
That's right.
What came before that? He said, Let there be light, and there was light. Glory to God. Let there be stars, and there were stars. And he found this chicken hiding from the Midianites and said, Mighty man of valor? Whoa! Now, just because God says it doesn't mean you believe it. But now, it's not about you. It doesn't matter what you believe. That's what you are. It's just a matter of God persuading you to believe that you are what He just made you. Look at this. I'm going to hold your place there and look to Isaiah chapter 10. Show you a case of this. Isaiah chapter 10 happens much later in Israel's history. Much later, when God has determined to use the Assyrian Empire, to raise up the Assyrian Empire to punish Israel. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5. O Assyrian, the rod of my anger, and the staff in their hand is my indignation. I will send him, that's the king of Assyria, I will send him against a hypocritical nation. That's Israel. And against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge. I'm going to command him, I give him a charge to take the prey, to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Howbeit, he doesn't intend to do it. He meaneth not so. Neither doth his heart think so. These are thoughts that haven't even come into his mind yet. But it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few, a bunch of them, because I put it there. And he doesn't even think it. Gideon had no thought of conquering the Midianites and the Amalekites. God has now put it in his heart. But Gideon doesn't think so. Gideon doesn't intend to do it. He meaneth not so. And Gideon said, O my Lord. Chapter 6, verse 13. That's a small L there. You're just saying, sir. Small 3 O-R-D, small letters, O-R-D. If Jehovah, the Lord, is with us, why then is all this befallen us? Why are we being dominated by the Amalekites and the Midianites? God told him to go on in his strength. He was going to be with him to set Israel free from the Midianites. Verse 16. Well, verse 15, he sounds like Moses talking to God. Well, how in the world can I do this? In verse 16, the Lord said to him, I will be with you. Thou shalt smite the Midianites as one man. He said, well, now, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me a sign that you're talking with me. What kind of sign would somebody give that they're there talking with you? Don't leave until I come give you a present and set it before you. And he said, okay, I'll wait till you come back. So he went and made ready a kid of the goats or lambs, and unleavened cakes, an ephah of flour, flesh he put in a basket, and put the broth in a pot and brought it out under the yoke and presented it. And the angel of God said, take the flesh and the unleavened cakes and lay them upon this rock and pour out the broth. And he did so. And the angel of the Lord put forth the end of his staff that was in his hand and touched the flesh and the unleavened cakes. And there rose up fire out of the rock and consumed the flesh and unleavened cakes. Then the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. And when Gideon perceived that it was an angel of the Lord, Gideon said, alas, O Lord God, because I have seen an angel of the Lord face to face. And the Lord said unto him, peace be unto thee, fear not, you're not going to die. Gideon built an altar there unto Jehovah, which is actually something God said not to do in the law. But he just felt overwhelmed and felt that that was the right thing to do at that place, and called it Jehovah is our peace. Jehovah is peace. And unto this day it is in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. It came to pass the same night that the Lord said to him, take your father's young bullock, the second bullock of 7 years old, and throw down the altar of Baal that thy father hath. Cut it down, and cut down the grove that is by it. Any of you ever been walking in some old forest? It's very, very peaceful around trees that are several hundred years old, huge, bent, very peaceful. Apparently, that became a worship center where groves were planted, and they became old trees over the centuries. That's where they had their high places many times. And they had a grove around this altar of Baal that Gideon's father had. How many times in the law did God say not to do that? He said, don't plant any grove near my altar to start with, because of the connection, hanging baskets, those little wind chimes that swing in the breeze. That's to drive off demons. That's where it came from. They be swinging in the breeze, hanging baskets of flowers with the altar, usually up on a hill, but sometimes, down in groves, down along beautiful spots along creeks, wherever a god was thought to especially inhabit. And Gideon's father had one. So Gideon got some of his father's servants together. They hooked up, must have been a pretty big altar. Pretty big idol. Hooked up the ox to it and pulled it over. Chopped down this is working at night, because he was afraid. Working at night, chopped up all the grove, built a fire, killed the ox and offered him on that, and then went and hid this mighty man of valor. He hadn't found out yet how brave he was. And in the morning, the people woke up and their sacred grove and that wonderful, beautiful thing that belonged to Baal was knocked over. How could anybody do such a beautiful work of art like that? So they asked around, and the servants always knew everything. So they found out that it was Gideon, and they came to, what was his father's house? What was his father's name? Joaz. And demanded that Gideon pay the price for the desecration of that holy place. And when the men of the city demanded in verse 30 that he bring out his son to die because he cast down the altar of Baal, because he hath cut down the grove that was by it, Joash said, you going to plead for Baal? You going to save Baal? He that will plead for Baal, let him be put to death while it's still this morning. If he's a god, let him plead for himself because somebody cast down his altar. Let Baal get him. If Baal's a god, let him handle it. Therefore his name became Jerubbaal, one that contends with Baal, or one Baal contends with. Let Baal plead against him because he's thrown down his altar. Well, then the Spirit of the Lord came on Gideon. He blew a trumpet and got some men from the tribes of, in verse 35, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. Asher and Zebulun and Naphtali were up in the north. His hometown was somewhere up in here. So he just got the tribes closest to where his hometown was to go to fight with him. He also called some from Manasseh, his tribe. And Gideon said unto God, if you're really going to save Israel by your hand, as you've said, I'll put a fleece of wool in the floor, and if dew be on the fleece only, and it's dry upon all the earth around it, I'll know you're going to save Israel by my hand, as you said. And it was so. For he rose up early in the morning and thrust the fleece together and wringed the dew out of the fleece, a bowl full of water. And Gideon said unto God, O let not thine anger be hot against me, and I will speak but this one more time. Let me prove, I pray thee, but this once with my fleece. Let it be dry only upon the fleece, and dew everywhere else. And God did so that night. It was dry upon the fleece, and there was dew on all the ground. And Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, you have too many people with you. Now they were already vastly outnumbered, but God has requirements for those who are going to be in His army. Number one is that you can't be chicken. And He tells Gideon to go throughout this 32,000 man army you've got here and tell them whoever's afraid, go home. And he did. He walked throughout the camp, sent messengers and said, whoever's fearful, let him go home. You're going to make everybody else afraid. 22,000 men decided they'd be better off at home. So he had 10,000 left. Now Gideon's faith was really going to be tried. And God asked him after that, or told him after that, he said, you still got too many. If you all win with a good-sized army, you're not going to give me the credit. So take them all down to the creek down there and watch, and tell them to go get something to drink, and watch and see how they do it. If they get down on all fours and just get their face down in the water, tell them to set them over here. And if they bend down on one knee and reach down with their hand and lap it like a dog, still holding their weapon in their hand and still watching, and he set them over there. 9,700 stuck their faces down in the water. And God told Gideon, tell them they need to be home too. So now he had 300 to face this vast multitude of Midianites and Amalekites. Now Gideon wanted to ask God for another sign, but he had already told God that was his last one. But God, being tenderhearted, told him, Gideon, this is after Gideon at nighttime got up on the hills around with his 300 men, got up on the hills around. Gideon, if you still need something, sneak down to the Midianite camp and I'll let them talk you into fighting. So he did. He and his servant Phurah sneaked down at night close to a tent, and he heard 2 Midianites talking, and one of them said, I had a dream of a huge barley cake rolling down this hill mountain and smashing all our tents up. And the other one said, you know who that is? That's Gideon. He's going to destroy us. And Gideon and Phurah looked at each other. I said, I guess we got to do it. So they went back up there, and the plan worked. There was so much confusion in the night that the Midianites and the Amalekites, clashing against each other, started fighting each other. The rest fled away, and Gideon chased many of them and killed them. And some of them were escaping, and Gideon in verse 24 sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim. This is on down farther south, because some of them were trying to escape that way. So he sent messengers to Ephraim to catch those Midianites trying to escape across the Jordan River, and told them to take the fords. In verse 25, those Ephraimites took 2 of the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, and they killed them both and brought their heads to Gideon. And the men of Ephraim were upset with Gideon and said, why didn't you call us when you went to fight with the Midianites? And they really were getting on him. And he said, hold on now. Look what you've got. You've got the 2 princes. You got the best of the whole lot of them. What is anything I've done compared to what you've done? Then after he flattered them, they were satisfied. Gideon decided to go on and chase the rest of them across Jordan, and he came with 300 men that were with him. They were very tired, yet they were pursuing, hot on their heels, and he came to Succoth. You know where Succoth is? It's on the Jabbok River. He crossed over and came to Succoth, and he asked the men of Succoth, give us some water or bread or something. We're chasing these oppressors of Israel. And they said, I don't know. What if you get up there and get beaten up, and we've given you help, then they come back and get us? They said, they're not in your hands yet. I think we better just stay inside our city. Verse 7, Gideon said, therefore, when Jehovah has delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will come back here and tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. He went on up the Jabbok River till he came to Penuel. What was something notable that happened at Penuel, Lou?
Jacob's name was changed.
Jacob wrestled an angel, and his name was changed to Israel at Penuel. That's a pretty well-known city. Came to Penuel and spoke to them of Penuel the same way. Give us some help. And the men of Penuel answered him the same way the men of Succoth did. Verse 9, he spoke to the men of Penuel, saying, when I come again in peace, I'm going to break down this tower. Then he went on out there and chased Zebah and Zalmunna into the wilderness. He slew a huge number of the enemy. In verse 12, he caught them. On his way back, in verse 14, he caught a young man of Succoth and inquired of him. And he told him who were the leaders of the city. So Gideon went and took the men of the city. In verse 16, he took the elders of the city, all 70 of them, and taught the men of Succoth with thorns and briars. What do you think he taught them, Wendell?
He taught him. I think you give him a good little lesson.
Yeah, I know. What was the lesson?
Be on the Lord's side.
Be on the Lord's side. Have faith in God. And then he went and beat down the tower of Penuel and killed all the men of that city. Boy, he was angry, wasn't he? And then he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, what manner of men were they whom you killed at Mount Tabor? And they answered, they looked like you. They resembled the children of a king. And he said, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As Jehovah lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not slay you. And he said to Jether, his firstborn, up, kill them. But the young man drew not his sword, for he was afraid. He was a youth. And Zebah and Zalmunna said, you get up and fall on us. As a man is, so is his strength. So Gideon rose up and killed them. Took away the ornaments that were on their camel's neck. Next thing you know, Israel's asking for a king. This is a bad thing because God is their king. And every time Israel needs help, and they turn to God, He's helped them. But now they want to be like other nations and have a king. That way they don't have to seek God when they get in trouble, they think. They just always have a king there and go to him. The men of Israel said to Gideon, you rule over us, you and your son's son forever. You delivered us from Midian. Gideon said, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you. And Gideon said to them, well, there's one thing you can give me. Give me, every man, the earrings that you got in this war. Because they had a lot of golden earrings. They said, we will willingly give them. They spread a garment, and they throw in there every man the earrings of his prey. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, besides ornaments and collars and purple raiment that was on the kings of Midian, and beside the chains that was about their camel's neck. And Gideon made an ephod. That's against the law of God. And put it in his city, even in Ophrah, and all Israel thither went a-whoring after it. Now they came worshiping it, the golden ephod of Gideon. You remember that brass serpent that Moses made in the wilderness many hundred years before this? Israel was worshiping that brass serpent at this time too. They worshipped it until 1 Kings 18. So, why would they do things like that? They didn't know any better. The men of God were not doing their part. Why didn't the Levites teach Israel the law of God? Why not? Why was the worship of Baal more attractive to them? Or better yet, why did they want to mix it all up? Why did they feel that they needed to find a place for Baal in their lives? What did Baal offer that God didn't have? It all goes back to God's servants not doing their job. They weren't doing their job. So Midian was subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more. That is, against Israel. The country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon. Gideon had, verse 30, had 70 sons, and one other one from a concubine in Shechem named Abimelech. Gideon died, and what's Israel do after a judge dies? Sins. What does God do after Israel sins? Yep. Verse 34, the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side, neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, Gideon, according to all the goodness that he had showed to Israel. Well, Abimelech, this son of Gideon's concubine, apparently thought his father had made a tragic mistake by not accepting Israel's offer to be their king. So he decided he would manipulate, pull some political strings, see if he couldn't build his way up to the throne. So he went to the men of Shechem, where his mother, Gideon's concubine, came from, and he said, now look, you want all those 70 sons of Gideon over you? Because everybody apparently was still looking up to him. Or is it better that just one man rule over you? And remember, my mother's from this city. Some of you I'm kin to. And they thought it over, and they thought it's better just for one man to rule over us. Now this is God's way of making sure they don't make a king. So he got his men together, And they collected all of Gideon's sons. The baby boy escaped. And took them on one rock. Didn't they say he cut off all their heads? Can you imagine being about number 37 in line? What an awful day. Blood running all over everywhere. So Abimelech is left alone. Now, that one son of Joash yelled at Abimelech. One son of Gideon named Joash yelled from the top of the hill and uttered a curse on Abimelech from the Lord that was fulfilled later on in this chapter. Now I want you to look at something here. Verse 22. When Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, then the devil sent an evil spirit. Sorry. God sent an evil spirit. And who is that evil spirit going to stir up trouble between? Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. Now there follows this civil war. And as the story proceeds, Abimelech has some success. Some people go up into this high tower to protect themselves from him. The men and women of a city, and children too, I suppose. He went and cut down huge limbs, laid it around that tower, set it on fire, and burned them all up alive. And he thought he really must have enjoyed that. Because in the very next battle, he was presented with the same problem. He came up with the same solution. Okay, everybody cut limbs, let's go. And he went up close to the edge of the city wall, and a woman up there had a chunk of millstone. And she saw him down there, and she just threw it, and it came down right on his head. And he knew he was going to die. He told his armor bearer, quick, stab me, so nobody say a woman killed me, but a woman killed him. His armor bearer stabbed him and finished him off, but that didn't count. That was cheating. And that's an important story because David mentions it later. So you need to remember the story of Abimelech and how he was killed. He was killed because he foolishly, in a war, went right up under the wall of people he was about to burn alive, thinking they weren't going to try to resist him. I mean, it's real stupid if you see people up there and, I'm going to burn you alive, and you just and you start building a fire at the bottom and expect them to just stand up there and look at you and say, oh, poor us. Oh, woe is me. I am about to be burned alive. Boo-hoo. That's not how people think. They think, what can I do to kill this man that's going to burn me alive? I will throw a rock on his head. And she did. So remember the story of Abimelech.